Welcome to the Realty Rundown, the podcast that cuts through the noise of the real estate world. Your hosts, seasoned industry experts Nick and Nate, are here to guide you through the entire process. Each week, they're breaking down the latest market trends, decoding complex jargon, and sharing insider secrets you won't find anywhere else. Whether you're buying your first home, selling a property, or building an investment portfolio, we provide the clear, actionable advice you need to make your next move your best move.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Realty Rundown from the Nic Wyse team at RE/MAX Results. I'm Nic Wyse, and clearly I'm flying solo today. Nathan has been covering for me all week, so he got the day off today. Why was he covering for me? I just got back from a trip to Jamaica. I was down there doing continuing education. We have to do 12 hours of that every year. Well, we figured out this year that we can actually do that training in Jamaica. So that was a no-brainer for me. Get me out of here, get me somewhere warm, where it ended up being fairly cold and rainy and windy all week, but it was still better than northern Indiana. At any rate, guys, being there got me thinking. A question that we do hear sometimes: can Americans own property, real estate, overseas? And how is that different from buying here in the U.S.? And also, what does it look like when a foreigner or foreign national owns land in the United States? So, figured that's a good, relevant topic for today. Coming off the Super Bowl, I hope everybody had a great night last night, got to watch the game. If that's your thing. If not, hope you went to bed early and got a great night's sleep. So this is just kind of an overview because there's a lot here really that we could unpack, and we may end up kind of breaking this apart and doing a whole episode just on one section or another. But for now, let's get into it. Let's talk about what this looks like. So international real estate. It's obviously, it's kind of a sexy thing, right? Can I buy a home internationally? Why would I want to? Well, people do it for lifestyle. They often have vacation homes, retirement homes. So it's part of their retirement planning, or, a second home, a place to spend part of the year. While we were down there, actually in Jamaica, a good friend of one of the people that was with us actually kind of lives down there for several months out of the year. He would call himself a Jamaican, I found out, which I thought was fun and clever. But so a lot of vacation homeowners. Secondly, investment potential, investment curiosities, rental income, especially if you're in a tourist market, kind of a way to diversify your portfolio in some ways. And then third, just affordability comparisons. I was actually surprised as I asked around a little bit. And every country is going to be different. Every location in every country is going to be different. But, how affordable is it to live? There's folks that are renting a decent sized unit there in Jamaica for $650 a month. So if you're hearing that and you're like, that's half of what I pay in rent, I'm going to Jamaica, I don't blame you. It's pretty awesome down there. It's also very different. So go and visit before you go ahead and slap down that down payment. There's a lot of differences, a lot of things that I was excited to come back home about as well, too. So, but really, you're going to see those prices abroad be a lot different than they are in the U.S., and there's reasons for that. So, can we buy property overseas? How easy is that to do? So, obviously, the Caribbean is an area where a lot of Americans would potentially look for a second home or an investment property. And yes, the answer is Americans can legally own property in most Caribbean countries. But there are key differences. There's ownership rules. There's financing differences. There's taxes that are very differently collected. And the resale process varies widely by country. So it's something that you really want to get looking into early on in the process, again, before you start slapping down payments. Because the biggest mistake that people can make when they're buying international real estate is assuming that it works like the U.S. But in fact, financing is often limited or unavailable entirely. Making a cash deal necessary. You're going to have to get a local attorney, maybe an attorney in both areas that kind of can bridge that gap for you a little bit. And then just understand that title systems work differently as well. I'm not going to get too far into that as well, but here in Indiana, we have a variety of ways that you can hold title, transfer title. That's just in the U.S. I think I said Indiana, but that's just in the U.S. In other countries, it's going to be even more different. So, and then currency exchange, obviously when you're looking at prices, I'll say one thing: driving in Jamaica, we saw, an advertisement for a new car. You can buy this new car and it's $7.9 million. Well, those are Jamaican dollars. And I did the math, still an expensive vehicle. I think it ended up being somewhere around $60,000 for that vehicle. But not $8 million. So Just make sure you understand the currency exchange rates. And then honestly, probably the most important thing of all is your exit strategy. Make sure you have one. If you buy this home or this condo or whatever it may be, and it doesn't go the way you think it might, make sure you have an exit strategy that's sound. Are you going to be able to sell this thing, get your money back? What are you going to have to pay in taxes if you do so? So I wouldn't say that international real estate is hard. It's just different. And the opportunities are there and they're real, but you really need to respect the system that you're buying into. Now, what it would affect people more often than I don't know, but I don't have a bunch of cash and I'm buying a home in Jamaica. I just found it interesting. What I could find myself involved with is foreign property owners in the United States. What are the ramifications of that? And there's a key law that we're going to talk about here, and it's something that you really do need to know. Even if you're not planning on buying a home from a foreign national, that might happen. And you need to know FIRPTA. FIRPTA is the key right here. What the heck is FIRPTA? Well, it's a federal law, actually, and it deals with foreign nationals who sell their U.S. real estate. So it stands for Foreign Investment in Real Property Tax Act, FIRPTA. Very fun to say. The law exists to make sure that the IRS gets paid before the seller's money leaves the country. So what does FIRPTA actually do? Basically, the seller owes U.S. tax on the gain of a sale of real estate. The IRS doesn't always trust the seller to pay it later. That's why they want it right up front. So the law requires a withholding at closing, and that is typically known to be 15% of the gross sales price. Not talking about profit yet. We're just talking about the price. So if you've got a $500,000 home, $65,000 is going to be withheld from that. And that money is sent to the IRS as prepayment of the seller's tax. Prepayment. So they're making sure they get theirs, and then you work out the rest later. The part that really buyers need to understand here is that, oddly as this may sound, it is the buyer's legal responsibility for the withholding. I'll say that again. It's the buyer's legal responsibility for the withholding. The American citizen buyer, if they're buying a property that is owned by a foreign national, you better be careful. Even though it's the seller's tax, the FIRPTA places the collection responsibility on the buyer, which means it's the buyer through the title company that must ensure that that tax is withheld. So buyers sign a FIRPTA affidavit at closing every time. You may not know if you're whizzing through your closing, you might not even know when you sign that. And if the tax is not collected at closing, because that's a possibility that nobody caught it and the tax is not collected at closing, who pays for it then? The buyer does. Yeah, that $65,000 or whatever it may end up being, buyer pays that. Not the seller, not the agent, not the title company. So the IRS can literally come after the buyer for any unpaid withholdings. And it can add penalties and interest. Yay. It can enforce this even years later when it's discovered. So it's not something like, oh, we got closed and a year later we're good, we're clear. Nope, they can come after you. It's the IRS. They're big and they're bad and they have a lot of power. So this is why title companies take FIRPTA very seriously. They don't want this to happen to the buyers. Buyers, what you need to know is when buying a home that might be owned by a foreign person, the seller it is necessary that they provide a non-foreign affidavit. And if they can't, FIRPTA applies. So title companies are going to automatically withhold that unless they get an exemption. There are exemptions. You can apply for them. And there's also exemptions depending on the amount of the real estate that's sold. So the lesser sales price, the lesser FIRPTA withholding that's required. And when it's a personal residence, even of a foreign national, and it's a low enough price point, there's no FIRPTA to collect. But it's something that you need to be very, very aware of. Obviously, it can be very, very expensive to get this wrong. So some sellers can apply for withholding certificate as well, and that can reduce the amount, but that must be approved by the government. So there's a lot to get through. Again, there's so far down the rabbit hole we can go here, but now that I've got you guys terrified and you're afraid to buy a home because it might be owned by a foreign national, this is one more reason that you need to make sure you have a professional realtor in your corner. You need to have a professional buyer's agent when you're going out looking for homes. It's also a good reason to buy a home that's on the MLS because that means it's been listed by a realtor and it means they've had this conversation. In fact, they've had their seller certify whether or not they are a foreign national. It is on our listing documents. You have to go through that with your real estate agent when you're listing your home. You maybe just listed your home and maybe you remember that. It is on the front page because it's that important. So if you're buying a home on the MLS, this conversation has happened. You can rest easier. And then also make sure you've got a title company to process this. To this day, I will never understand why people want to buy a home and say, I don't need title insurance. Don't worry about that. This is another reason why you do, because they're going to be that extra layer of protection. No, they're not going to be responsible for paying it, but they are going to be the ones collecting it and then sending in that withholding. So this kind of thing would get caught early in that process. All right, guys, deep breath, nothing to be terrified about. This is actually something that we deal with all the time in real estate. And if you're thinking about buying an international home, or you're thinking that the home you're buying might be owned by a foreign international, this is just another reason to have a real estate agent in your corner, guys. If you're curious about how this works, if you have questions about foreign ownership here in the U.S., please do reach out to me or Nathan Schwartz with the Nic Wyse team. It's what we're here for, guys. We're here to help you. There you go. That is episode 55, the Realty Rundown from the Nic Wyse team. Remember, guys, Nick knows. Get your wise replies. We'll see you next time, guys.
And that's a wrap on another episode. Thanks for tuning in. We hope you had as much fun as we did. We love sharing real estate insights, but as you can see, we also love to have a good time. This energy and passion is what we bring to every client. Buying or selling a home is a huge deal, but it doesn't have to be stressful. With the right team, it can even be fun. Ready to make your move? Let's connect.